I did a really good job.
Well, that was easy. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
This is going to be an interactive session. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Thank you. My name is Bobby Braun. I'm the Dean of the College of Engineering and Applied Science here at CU Boulder. And I want to welcome you to our college's Dean Speaker Series. We're fortunate to be joined by just a fantastic engineer, academic leader, and frankly person tonight, and that's Dr. Kristina M. Johnson. As you'll hear tonight, Dr. Johnson's had an amazing career that spans the private sector, government, and higher education. She started right here in Colorado, growing up in Denver. She's a native of our state, and she holds BS, MS, and PhD degrees, all in electrical engineering from Stanford University. While an undergraduate at Stanford, she founded the women's lacrosse team. It later became actually a varsity sport. Since the fall of 2017, she served as the Chancellor of the State University of New York, SUNY, is how I know it. And those of you that are paying attention know that SUNY is the nation's largest system of public higher education. It has a whopping 64 college and university campuses that are located within 30 miles of every home, school, and business in the state of New York.
Wow.
Think about that for a minute. You know, we have our 4 campuses, kind of largely on the Front Range here, within 30 miles of every home. I mean, it's remarkable. SUNY serves more than 1.3 million students annually. It employs more than 90,000 faculty and staff, and it connects more than 3 million alumni around the world. Prior to joining SUNY, Dr. Johnson was the co-founder and the CEO of Cube Hydro Partners, a clean energy infrastructure company that was focused on building and operating hydropower plants in North America. Dr. Johnson grew the company from 1 plant to 19 plants that were located on 10 rivers in 5 different states, which produced enough power for 150,000 homes with clean energy. Prior to that, in 2009, she worked in the Obama administration, where she was appointed as Undersecretary of Energy for a number of years. And she has just a long list of accomplishments. Just as one example, she holds 118 patents. That's a few more than me, I'll admit. She's a member of the National Academy of Engineering, the National Academy of Inventors. In 2008, she was awarded the Fritz Medal, which many of you know is like the Nobel Prize for engineering. She's one of a couple of faculty, actually, from our college at one point that have been awarded that medal. Which brings me to maybe my favorite point, which is from 1985 to 1998, she served as a faculty member right here on the CU Boulder campus in the Department of Electrical and Computer Engineering. That's right. And there she directed, among other things, she directed an NSF Engineering Research Center focused on optoelectronics and computing. She's in academia, by the way. She's also served as Dean of Engineering at Duke and Senior Vice President and Provost at Johns Hopkins University. I could go on and on because she has had such a remarkable career. I probably only touched on about half of her accomplishments. For that, I apologize, but I don't want to take up the whole time going through her remarkable bio. I just conclude by saying that I'm honored to welcome this beyond accomplished engineer back to our campus, back to where some of this started. And I appreciate it, and join me in welcoming her to the stage. Welcome home.
It's great to be home. Good afternoon.
So for our session today, and by the way, I should have started by welcoming all the people that are on the internet via live stream. Thank you all for joining us as well. I've got a few questions to start with today to kind of get the ball rolling. And then there'll be time for Q&A with the audience. There'll be microphones, just so you know, in both aisles. And you all will be free to ask any questions that you like during our session. Sorry. Welcome to the hot seat. Yeah, we're really glad you're here. Thank you for making the trip. You're very busy, and it's great to have you back in Boulder. I ran through your accomplishments, which are quite extensive. I was hoping we could start maybe by just talking a little bit about your time as a faculty member here. Maybe you could tell us what that was like now versus you've been here half the day or so. You've been here today, and you kind of looked around the college and the campus. Maybe you contrast the way it was when you were a faculty member versus the way it looks to you today. That would be a good way to get started.
That would be great. Well, first of all, it was a fabulous visit. Thank you, Dean, for hosting me. I think I see some of the faculty members on Melville and others over here when I joined. Everything was in the grain elevator. So now I got to go and look at the idea was
Idea Forge.
Idea Forge. And, it used to be where the law school library was, and of course they never let us in there. So, but it's sometimes to the new aerospace engineering building. You've grown to what 7,000 students and 2,000 undergrads. I see Frank Barnes over here, so a lot of the colleagues that welcomed me into the academy. So it's a big, I just see it's on the move. Definitely is on the move. I understand from talking to the dean that this first year for students are the most gender diverse ever, like maybe equal men and women or close. So Susan Avery, I see too, Bobby, so that's pretty exciting. I think that's certainly a change as well. So pretty cool.
What was it like as a young faculty member here in the 80s and 90s?
Wow.
Was tenure track like daunting to you, or was it something that you were like, oh yeah, I got it?
Not exactly. Yeah, I remember, with regard to tenure track, I don't think you think it's, I know you have to do all these things in order to get tenure, and I didn't think it was going to affect me until Dean Seabass called me on a Friday afternoon, like he does that. On a Friday afternoon, it's like 4 o'clock. I guess we didn't get fired, it's time to do it. So I go, okay, Dean wants to talk to me, it's Friday afternoon. He goes, well, I just want you to know you got tenure. Hang up the phone. Say goodbye, obviously. Hang up the phone. And I went, wow. So I think that was the start of when, in every Friday afternoon during the spring and the summer, my research group and I would go out to Flatirons Golf Course and golf, and then have beers. I don't know, Rob, if you ever joined us for that, but I'm one of my former PhD students sitting in the front row. So that was pretty exciting. That's what we always did. So I went over and didn't go about 4 or 5 in the afternoon and play. It was still light. That was just a great way to build community. So I remember those times. We had great labs. There was such a cross-disciplinary flavor and emphasis then. And so I saw Kelvin Wagner's here. So he and myself and Dana and some of the other team together to bring the largest grant at that time to CE Boulder and UMC. So it was a very exciting time. Optics was definitely a big emphasis for the university. It's continued to be that way, building on Angela and the experts like Tom Cathy, who went past this last year, but he was another mentor. So it was exciting. It was a very exciting time for a young faculty member. And today I was asked by faculty, what was the best part of your career? I have to say, probably it was 93, 94, 95, after you get the labs up and running, you get the graduate students going, you got tenure, and you just really embrace it and just run with it and play golf right at it.
So, were you among the first women in faculty in the department?
So, what's interesting, and I know Susan, I think Susan and I were here first, women in our department, and Donna Brown. I think visiting faculty members. I actually started in '84, but I didn't show up until '85. And the reason I didn't show up to '85, I just wasn't done with my postdoc yet. So, but actually, it isn't until this last job as chancellor that I wasn't the first woman, first woman dean, first woman provost, first woman undersecretary. I mean, it's so refreshing. Yeah, and Susan knows what that's like. We were the first coming in the department, a lovely department of 45 guys. That's great. Kent, how are you? One of my collaborators from the math department. Thank you for being here.
Okay. So, engineering is a demanding field that sometimes demands unconventional dedication, focus, hours. When you were a faculty member here, and over the course of your career, how did you balance the demands of work with the demands of life, other aspects of your life? Is
That was a
something you
big
struggle with?
yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think how many of us were faculty members here? Right? So I think this may resonate, and I still think that it's the best career ever. That's what I told all the students today. And I'm like, really? I said, oh yeah, you definitely want to be faculty. But it's complicated, right? Because you feel like before you get tenure, at least, I don't know if this will resonate, but there's the teaching, there's getting a research lab going, there's service because you want to be part of the department, and yet you want to have a life outside. I think the most challenging years for me, frankly, were probably the '97 to '99, because my mother had a major stroke, so she was disabled and was in a home in Denver. And my sister was having health issues of her own, and she had 3 kids. And so, it was balancing. I was directing the OCS at the time. And then I was starting a company too, and that was all kind of craziness. So, but you basically compartmentalize things. And so I kind of got a rhythm going. I took a leave of absence from CU. I don't know if you know that, but I took a leave in '98. And I didn't take salary. I think the department at the time was a lovely guy, William Griffiths, loved it because I still taught my class, still supervised my students, but they didn't have to pay me. They were my students, right?
Doesn't sound like a leap.
Yeah, but the way it worked it out was Monday through Thursday, I worked in a company called Colorwind. And on Fridays, I would go meet with all my research students. And Wednesday night, I would teach 4A optics from 7 to 10, I think. Oh, that's terrible. I did order pizza halfway through. And so that was kind of the rhythm. And on Saturdays, I go to the lab, and Sundays, spend time with my mother. Sundays, Tuesday at lunch, and Thursday dinner. So you just have to get a schedule and stick to it. But it's tough. I mean, it's challenging without that.
Okay. In my introduction, I referenced that you have 118 patents, which is kind of hard for me to fathom. But can you, we're very interested in intellectual property in the college and in the university. Can you talk a little bit about the process, like how you got engaged in patenting your IP, and what was it like to get that first patent, for example? And how did you know that this work was patentable and maybe some other work was not?
So the 118, in the interest of full disclosure, those are U.S. and international patents. So in U.S. only, it's probably only about 45.
Was that all?
Yeah. So, but the funny thing was, we have a great Office of Technology licensing. So one year, I think our research group spent all the money. So I felt the responsibility. In fact, Ted Weaver, one of Kelvin's students, works at least worked for a while in OTL and licensing. So, I kind of felt the responsibility of spending all this money. I better do something with it. But I found it just fascinating that you can make something, think of something, make it in the lab, and then get someone to actually buy it and not return it. That was my first idea. Some of the first components we made return. That one's not so good. I didn't realize what RMA, return merchandise meant. But anyway, but the way the first one happened, I remember the first one very clearly. And again, it was Tom Cathy, Professor Cathy, who was really one of the reasons I came to the University of Colorado. He said, there's this guy over in physics named Noel Clark, and he's got this really interesting device called liquid crystal. Now this is '85, right? So this is when the liquid crystal TVs were just coming out, and they weren't even TFT LCDs like we all maybe have now, or OLEDs were still in the future. So they're just twisted pneumatics. You apply voltage, you unstretch it, you let go of the voltage, and then it takes time, it winds back up. The difference between those states give you black and white, or all the levels of gray in between. So I'm like, okay, well, that sounds interesting. And I'd been away for a couple of years, so I didn't really follow it. And like in the early 80s, 80, 81, Noel Clark, working with Phil Marwell at University of Edinburgh, invented the ferroelectric liquid crystal, which you could turn on and off with the electric field by reversing the polarity because it had permanent polarization. He said, you want to go find out about this. Now, I knew nothing about this. And then I ended up 14 years. That's really what I worked on, applications of liquid crystal. So I went to, I think it was Northern Library, which is so strange for an engineering professor to go there. But I figured, I wouldn't know one recognize me. So I took a couple of papers on liquid crystals. And then I took a paper from optical engineering by Tidal and Rosenberg. Alan Tidal, National Academy member, worked at Lockheed, did filters for observing astronomical prominences, not dynamic filters. Well, some of them you rotate, but they're soft filters and wheel filters. And they said in the paper, so if you want to invent something, this is all you have to do. Find a paper that says you can't do it, and then figure out how to do it. So they said in the paper, you cannot build one of our filters with liquid crystals. It just wouldn't work because the indium tin oxide electrodes would attenuate some of the light, blah, 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 blah. So I sat down and thought, well, how would we do that? And at the time, people were thinking of pneumatics. Pneumatics were what's called a retarder. We apply electric changes the retardance of the material. It's birefringent. But Noel's invention was a rotator. So you had to convert a rotator, which rotates out to gas the material this way, to a retarder, which rotates it like it's like a football. So I didn't even think I would even remember it in this. I decided to give a lecture on it, so let's move on. So the first invention was a very simple device where we take ferroelectric liquid crystal rotator, add it in a quarter wave, and make it into a retarder, and then change the color of light going through a polarizer, cross polarizer, so we could go black to white and change the colors. But the colors were very pastel. Now I know, Kelvin, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And the trick was to make gray colors, which meant that you really had to look at the mathematics from Chebyshev filters, pass bands, stop bands, and get really sharp transitions between the colors. And that was the breakthrough. One of my students who was very sharp, actually his name's Gary Sharp. He came up with the best blue in the business. And if you ever see the movie Avatar, that blue from our technology, and the earth is blue. It's like really good blue. So from there, we formed a company called Link. We started selling, and then we sold the company real deep. It was all 3 movies. So. But that started with that one day, one good day. That's all it takes.
118 good days. Okay. Sounds great. In an interview with Science News, you shared that there were times in engineering where you felt you didn't belong. What would you say to our students, many of whom are gathered here today or watching on the internet, or any student that's being told or feeling that they perhaps don't belong in an institution? What do you think the faculty and staff of an institution should do to support or better support our students?
Well, I think from what I've seen today, you're doing a fabulous job in engineering. The kind of support that is available for students down and the tutoring and the community. But I think one of the things that we all try to do in our research groups is create a family feeling. So one of the ways that we looked at it, besides golf and Friday afternoons, is we would go skiing. We take our group skiing. And so my deal was I'd get a place in Steamboat, Copper, Breckenridge, and I would get the condo for the weekend. By the whole group. They had cooked up. That was our deal. I would not cook. You cook Monday. It was great. And so I think you start to develop a community. And so, you're always going to run into some topic that doesn't quite excite you, but you have to get through it because it's part of the overall. And okay, I was an electrical engineer, but for me that thing was circuits, right? Funny. You get circuits right away. So you just have to kind of persist and be resilient and believe that you should be there. And it is a confidence building. I think that's the biggest thing is how do we help our students, faculty, and staff build confidence? And I think one of the ways you do it, and that's what I saw today, again, the idea of Forge is the ability to do something outside the classroom and be successful is something that then students rely on when they're in the classroom and they're running to this people, I think.
That's wonderful. Do you have an example of, outside of academia, the other 2/3, if you will, of your career related to resilience, an example where maybe things didn't go right the first time and you just persisted and made it happen?
So this is going to sound like it's not related, but I think you'll see the connection. Because what just popped in my head, so I'm sure. The first time I met the President of the United States. President Barack Obama. Right? I was so excited. I was going to be mentoring kids on the South Lawn of the White House with John Holford, who was one of your speakers in the fall, right? So I was super excited. Show up ahead of time with other cabinet members, and this was kind of a big deal. Actually, there were maybe half the cabinet was there, like the principals. And my cabinet principal couldn't make it, so we asked him, "Right, I said, sure, absolutely." That's fun. So I got super nervous. I walk up, President go tall. Yes, Mr. President, I'm like, die. Totally die. He's got a really great handshake. He's like, "What's wrong with you? Are you going to say anything?" So I said, so then I blurted out, okay, I have to put it in context. This was April 23rd of 2010. If you remember what happened on Tuesday, April 20th of 2010, I see Carl Linden, my past, hello. That was the Deepwater Horizon BP oil spill. And I'm meeting the president that Friday. And they couldn't tell American people anything. Nobody knew how much oil was spilled. Oh, we don't know. What caused it? We don't know. There he goes on and on. And so I knew this because it was trickling down to the Department of Energy. Marcia McNutt, USGS, Lisa Jackson, head of EPA, and myself with the energy portfolio, and of course, Secretary too. What can you tell us? I'm like, so I just look at him in the eyes and I go, "Mr. President, we're doing everything we can about the BP oil spill." And I went, the most annoying thing on this plate right now. And there's always a lot of annoying things, but that was like number one. And he just looked at me and, he's a very kind person. He smiled and goes, "Thanks." So I go home that night. And these were very long days. There's the hardest job I've ever had. I wake up at 3 in the morning. And I realize how we can measure how much oil is coming out. So in our labs, it was right before you joined, Rob, there was a really sharp, not very sharp, but John Sharp, close up. And he had done an experiment called particle philosophy. So were you there? Okay, so you were there, right? So we put in little glass beads into a water tank. And you see the glass beads go, and you take a double exposure, and you look at the fringe pattern. Orientation of the fringe tell you the direction, and the fringe separation tell you about the speed. Once you have the direction and speed, you can tell the velocity. Once you have the velocity, you can tell how much oil is spilling out at a minimum. So I thought that what was coming up out of the ground was, yes, a lot of oil out of the ocean, but also a lot of grit from the sand, right? And from the grout that had failed. So I figured those little particles would probably start looking out. So I pulled off the web the paper that Johnny, you were there, that's right. And I sent it to Marcia McNutt and Lisa Jackson and Steve Chu, and I said, "I think this is the way we can measure it." Marcia emailed back, this is like 4:30 in the morning, 15 minutes. She goes, "I think we can do that. And by the way, we have the best PID system in the world." I said, "Great." Next Friday, the president walks out into the Rose Garden and announces that at least 20,000 barrels of oil are spilled a day, and at least got some information to the public that was really concerned about this. And then we put together an industrial advisory group of actually Kim Hatfield, who was president of Colorado Petroleum in Oklahoma, another connection back to Colorado. He helped fund Color Lake, my startup. He was the CEO of an oil company. He had started his career as a inspector of blowout preventer valves on offshore rigs, which is exactly what our issue was. So we were able to bring together industry, work with government, and then Steve Chu made a very gutsy call, which was to plug the hole. And if that hadn't worked, we would have said an environmental disaster like with golf. So those were really, really kind of difficult days. Yes, but I failed the first time I met the president. I totally failed. And I need him about yeah, it was a good recovery. I never called him up and say, hey, you know, like, but someday I'll.
Good recovery.
Getting to the president, I did hire him in my old startup. He would answer the phone in the White House and wake up the president every morning. He does not wake up to alarm clock. He actually gets a person that calls him from Marcus Switzer.
Okay. You've been recognized as a leader in engineering, industry, and education. And you've said in interviews that you view leadership largely as common sense. What do you think makes a good leader? What would you say to those that are here tonight, you know, that are practicing as leaders or hoping to become leaders in academia or in any of these other sectors?
So I think certainly leadership is about having a vision. And I've seen a lot of vision here today, which I've loved. Your vision for the college and your 6 initiatives and the other points of your plan, which I think are terrific. Being able to garner the resources to carry out that vision, and be able to get people aligned to share that vision. So creating shared vision, getting the resources to carry out the vision, and then keeping your eye on impact. You can do that as a which is, you know, one of the things that we share today about you garnering resources for the college before you. That's a sign of great leader.
Thank you.
I'm just good at that.
No, that's great. Thank you. You know, sitting here listening to you talk about leadership or any of these things, I've got to say I've spoken to a lot of chancellors, and you sound a little different than most chancellors. You sound quite technical, which I love. So the question I have is really, how is engineering, you know, your background in engineering, how has that influenced all the other facets of your career, your approach to leadership, your ability and interest in, you know, startups, or your current position at SUNY?
Well, so when I was a kid in college, I used to wear a t-shirt. As kids do, right? T-shirts and jeans to wear, but it had, I'm an engineer on the back. It was, what's your problem? So I think that's part of what an engineering background brings to everyone, is the ability to analyze things from almost a holistic perspective. I'll give you an example. When I was Undersecretary of Energy, I was talking about this in the group earlier today. The portfolio for the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act is $36 billion. The portfolio of energy, just energy in the Department of Energy, is about 10, 11 billion. So it's about 3x. Plus we have the loan guarantee program, which is 5x. So there are a lot of money to get out fast. And so policies have been put in place pretty quickly. So then when we have time to breathe a little bit, I step back and say, okay, if you were informed by engineering science ahead of time, would there be some programs you would fund over others? And then you can start to do a cost analysis of, and you don't know the answer until you've carried it out and see what the results are, but it's important to circle back. So I'm really a big advocate of engineers informing policy, because I think there are some policies that are going to be more efficient than others, but if you don't know how to assess that and look at the optimization, then you're missing something. So I think that, I mean, I am an engineering chauvinist, I admit it. You know, I'm just, but I think that it's such a great foundation for any particular discipline. So I think loving to solve problems, love the problem. So whenever someone brings me a problem as chancellor, I'm like, great. Most of the time.
So in that same vein, 64 campuses, 90,000 employees, over 1 million students. I can't imagine what a day of your life is like, actually. How do you prioritize, all the competing demands, the crises of the moment, with the need to strategize long-term for the future of the institution?
So it's a large comprehensive system, the largest in the U.S. And I think the only way you survive is to choose a few things and no matter what's going on, they're always behind those walls. So that's one. Two, just hiring great leaders and getting them resources and getting out of the way and checking in, but not, not getting in their patch. So understanding they've got their lane and they're around these campuses with phenomenal leaders. So that's important. Trying to help them, serve them, and get them resources to carry out is something that's really important to me. In addition to that, an overlay of I'm really intrigued by predicting the future and individualized education. Our ability, if you've got 1 million students and 3 million alums, is the ability to look at what paths are these alums taken. So going back to our old neural network days, right? Inputs. You can analyze the folks and their abilities. You know who's come before them, what the outputs look like, and then the question is, can you identify individual paths that optimally have the students go from A to B, right? And then circle back. So I'm interested in individualized education. That's one of the themes. The second theme is sustainability. And not just energy and the environment, although I think that's important to sustain, but sustainability in a broader sense. And then the other one is really innovation and entrepreneurship. And we're just at the beginning. So I mentioned these things, and because the final pillar is partnerships. And one of the reasons I wanted to come today is to see how we might be able to work together in the future.
I'm excited about that. We'll follow up on some of those ideas. One last question, and then I'll open it up to the audience. Some have described the university as a marketplace of ideas, yet not all ideas are always welcome on campus. So, for example, some ideas could be insulting or demeaning to others. From your perspective and experience as Chancellor, has SUNY wrestled with the issues of academic freedoms, free speech, those types of issues?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And how do you balance those?
Right.
Demands?
So I think there are several key examples where we've had some outstanding presidents at our campuses lead change. So I'll give you one example is New Paltz. It's a campus in upstate New York. Of course, anything that's not New York City is considered upstate. So, and we have a great president, Don Christian. And through the course of right after Charlottesville, recognized, is brought to his attention that there were 4 or 5 dorms that were named for former slave owners, for the 49 families. Now, these dorms were recognized not as named for the families, but actually specific individuals who had owned slaves. So it wasn't, over 400 years of the contribution of the family. It's a little different than having one individual that had been slave owner. And imagine that you are a person from a community that had been a slave, and you are asked to live in that particular dorm. This would not be a very welcoming or positive experience. You went through a very deliberative process with conversation, discussion, debate, and just succeeded, and I think a very short period of time, to rename those dorms. And in a way that was difficult at times, but very inclusive and moved something forward. And I think that was really an example of how to move forward productive change so that you create that inclusive environment. I think it's, when something's wrong, you just got to call it out. You got to say it's wrong. And the second thing, then you've got to make sure though that everybody appreciates that things that have a valid difference of opinion, one needs to have a conversation about that. And I think the third thing is that, the old adage, right? You can have your own opinion, but you can't have your own facts. So I think that some of the things I learned today was where this college has used real data to look at what are the facts about how we do things and how we move forward is really very positive. So,
In the Bowl Center, you're right.
in the Bowl Center, that's exactly right.
All right. I can't believe the Bowl Center wasn't here. To me, it's just a central part of our identity.
Are you saying that?
No. No, I gotta go to the audience. So there's mics. If you're gonna ask a question, I'd ask that you do it on a mic. So why don't we go right here?
Hi, thank you so much for being here. Hello.
No.
Thank you so much. I feel really fortunate to have you here. I'm a PhD student in computer science, and I'm wondering, in your career, could you tell me about a breakthrough that was personally meaningful to you, and how it happened, and maybe what changed for you?
Well, that's a great question. A breakthrough, wow. Hopefully there's been a few. This is, I think, one of the breakthroughs for me was recognizing that my own biases. And so I'll tell you, and I'm not going to mention this particular student's name, just she's terrific. She came to me, and I am a woman experimentalist scientist, right? She came and she wanted to be an experimentalist, and I found myself subconsciously steering her to a more theoretical basis. Wow, when I realized that, I was like, OMG, right? Turned out she's probably one of the most gifted experimentalists that we had in the group. She also did theory, and I think she's since started her own company. I'm sure Ron knows who I'm talking about, because she was here when you were there. But that was an eye-opener and a breakthrough for me, is that we constantly should keep questioning our assumptions and not assume just because you're old that you don't have biases about what scientists should be like, which is a real eye-opener for me. So I don't know if that's what you're thinking about, but that certainly was the first thing that got off my mind. Maybe it's because of bold.
Hi, I'm a former student and I work over on East Campus at LASP. And I'm actually curious for your opinion on Governor Cuomo's push to make SUNY more economical and more affordable for the middle class, being tuition free, and how you see that moving forward for other states.
Right. So the program that you're referring to is the Excelsior Scholarship Program. So we've had at the state of New York for years something called Tuition Assistance Program, or TAP. And I think the way TAP works is that there's free tuition for students from families making less than $60,000 a year. What Excelsior did over 3 years period of time, and this will be our third year, is now it'll be for families that make under $125,000 a year. It'll be tuition free. So here's the most interesting thing we know so far. It's early days. We've only had like 2 years. The retention level, it's actually features of the tuition free that are critical. And so what we found is that our community college students, the retention of them going from the first and second year, because if you don't complete 30 credits in 1 year, you lose your free tuition, has gone up 15%. 15 percentage points, which is huge. So that was an unexpected, you love those unexpected positive things, right? So I think that was an unexpected, and it's about 8.3% overall. So that was really important, because part of graduating with less debt, which I'm very passionate about, is just getting students to complete in a particular period of time. So I think that's been really, really interesting. The other side of that, though, is that tuition is just one part of the cost of going to college, and it's probably only about 25% in SUNY. So tuition is about $6,000 a year, undergraduate, and the rest of books, fees, room and board is probably another 18. So you're talking about something that is 25% of the issue. Half of the students from the State University of New York will graduate debt-free. The other half graduate with an average debt of somewhere around 23 to 25K. So my interest is to try and raise scholarship and fellowship funding for not just the undergraduates, also the graduate students. Because I was fortunate enough, I graduated very little debt from going to college for 8 years. And it's just to start out with that kind of debt, you really tough. So, appreciate the question. I think that we, just all need to keep raising money to make it affordable for the next generation. I'd say one other thing, this I didn't appreciate when I was here at the University of Colorado. Although growing up in Colorado, I always felt this was my university. And everybody else's, but so one of our campuses in 64 serves more students from the lower 20% than the entire Ivy League, all 8 universities combined. That's the power of what all of us are doing in public higher education. One campus. One of our other campuses, #1 in the AU, taking kids from the lower 20% to the upper 20%. That's Stony Brook. And third out of 1,380 campuses. Now the concern is, and this is the thing I'm very concerned about, is the trend, because as the colleges become even more competitive in admissions, do you have enough financial aid and need for everyone? And we don't. But I'd be curious where Colorado is. I'm sure it's pretty high as well. So it's a different, it's probably coming back to a public educational institution, which is where I started in Colorado, is really gratifying.
And related to that, just context real quick, what percent roughly of the SUNY budget comes from the state?
So that's a little complicated, roughly. It depends on how you count it. Budget is 13 billion roughly. I think about 3 billion comes from the state. It's very good. Over 2 billion of that are benefits though, because we have pretty high benefits in our union, 1 billion, and it's about $1 billion in direct tax support. So it's very, yeah, I would say, I think it's very generous. Okay. Thanks.
Hi, my name is Navin. I'm undergraduate in electrical computer, and I just had the question I have for you. You worked as an entrepreneur, as an educator, and also as an engineer. I was wondering how you manage to stay so versatile in all these different fields. How do you manage to always like be open to working in new places or new fields?
No, I think, yeah, that's a good question. I think you said it, that being versatile, and I do think engineering's background is really important. I also think something we talked about earlier today, which is, engineering is hard, right? At least I found it hard. I don't know about the rest of y'all, maybe it's great. It was a little hard. And so just keeping your eye on becoming an engineer and facing down each barrier and being resilient and persistent, you can do anything after that. So I really come back to the engineering training. I think that's really been sticking with it.
Hi, my name is Hannah. I'm a sophomore in aerospace engineering. And I was wondering what you think the hardest engineering challenge will be for my generation and what you think colleges can do to maybe prepare us a little bit to solve
it. So, you hear a lot, you hear people say, this will be the first generation that's not better off than their parents. So I ask the question, what does it mean to be better off? Are we talking financially? Or, on Maslow's hierarchy, we'll be talking about, better off, you could be better off by having a better environment. You could be better off by having less war and violence. You could be better, there's so many different ways we can be better off, right? So I don't really buy into the financial aspect of that, but I'm trying to answer the question of what the biggest challenges faced with that is the context. Clearly I think climate change is a big deal. And I think that right now, I looked at recently some of the things that we looked at when I was undersecretary, what we have to do year by year so that we would not increase average temperature there by 2 degrees by 2040, 2050. And in some places we're ahead, in many places we're behind. So I think that it's a human issue. It's I think the biggest challenge is getting people to work together collaboratively for avoiding the tragedy of the commons. So this is what the 50th year anniversary of that paper being published, Tragedy of the Commons. And Tragedy of the Commons, it talks about how people make decisions based on, I just reread it not too long ago, so hopefully I get this, but make decisions, they have a choice, you have a comment, like a big grassy knoll, right? And so I've got cows, and you can have cows. You might have a lot of cows. You can have cows. You used to have cows. Okay, maybe there's a reason to see about this. So, I want to add a cow, and I put them out in the common, right? So, that takes a little bit of that common space. But if everybody else puts a cow out there, then it crowds out. But I'm better off because I doubled my herd maybe if I put 5 or 10 cows out there. But I've also reduced the impact. If everybody did that, then we would destroy the common. And that's the tragedy of the commons, is that people make decisions without taking into account what's for the good of the whole. And I think that's the biggest challenge. When it comes down to it, seems to me all the major issues that we have are really driven by those decisions that we make daily. I know that's a little fuzzy answer, but I do think that's the biggest difficulty. We're there to help though.
Hi, I'm a professor of computer science, and when I was a brand new assistant professor here, you were such an important role model for me, so thank you for that. Now, going on 30 years later, here I still am, and you had this amazing career with, back and forth in academia and the private sector and government. Can you talk a little bit about the personal journey and how you made the decisions to move between these sectors?
Well, thank you. It's great to see you again. I think one of the opportunities, and this is one of the beautiful things about City Boulder. It really gave me an opportunity as an assistant professor to lead and do something, right? So I got together with some of our colleagues, like Vince Curie and Harry Jordan, Lewis Sharp, and Kathy. We wrote the largest grant at the time the university ever received. Well, that was pretty heady and pretty exciting to be part of that team as a young kid. And Arnaldo, you were involved, and Frank, you were involved as well, and Carl, you were on the team. And so we really put together, and Kelvin joined us shortly thereafter. We were able to put together the cross-disciplinary program. And so after working in that for a while, and getting 14 years in Colorado, I was here for a while. As I wanted to see, could I apply the things that I learned about how we can get individuals work across disciplines at the next stage. And so Ross Cronus was the dean of engineering at the time, and I wanted to be like Ross, and got the opportunity to go to Duke and to lead the engineering school there. And it was a small school, but a great faculty member, Carl. You guys recruited away from me. That's okay.
He's in a good spot.
I know, he is in a really good spot. He was in a good spot.
He loves it here.
I was in a good spot there too, but I think the mountains were a big job, but it's great to see you again. So, the ability to apply some of the common sense things that I have learned here in Colorado, frankly, and sometimes you have to leave if that's what you want to do. And I just had this drive to want to do that. It was like a calling. And then after doing that for about 8 years, and things kind of went well, I thought, well, maybe we can do it at another scale. And so, and so then along the way, I think it's important to note that your career doesn't always go in the direction you want, right? So I became provost at Johns Hopkins, and I was there for about 2 years. And so in my first year, the president announced his resignation. And that was kind of an interesting time because it wasn't really an internal candidate for the presidency, but it wasn't an outside candidate either. And if I had been, I think maybe self-aware at the time, I probably would not have been a candidate for president. But I was. I obviously didn't get the job. And the new president came in and wanted his own roles, which I get. And so at the same time, there was this gentleman by the name of Barack Obama become president. I thought, wow, I think that's real for him.
Not bad backup.
Not bad. I'd love to do that. So I had the opportunity to explore, got a call to, the Office of Personnel Management. Had a couple different opportunities. I thought, this would be good to try. And I was always really passionate about the energy of the environment. Even when I was a little kid, like I'm old enough to remember the first birthday. I'm probably one of the few people that ever remember. And I thought, I had, and I'll admit it, my epiphany, which is another one of the epiphanies to the first question, was really watching Inconvenient Truth and realizing what that dynamic climate was really a forcing function was the emissions. So I thought I'd have a chance to do something about that. And then I really got into it. I thought, gosh, we've got to do something about this. You're going to go out and start a company in renewable energy. And that was really hard. It was like really hard. Like this is real engineering. Like we built a power plant from scratch, a hydropower plant. Like I'm an optics person. What do I know about hydropower? But I tell you what confidence can do. This comes back to something you asked Bonnie. So my dad was a hydropower engineer. That's how we came to Colorado. He helped build Glen Canyon project back in the day. His dad was an electrical engineer who worked with George Westinghouse, building some of the first hydropower plants that lit up this country over 100 years ago. So I thought, well, it's got to be the genes. So, but it's having this, when I know you all know this, but when you want to all right, let me put it into perspective. I've become a big Game of Thrones fan, right? Okay. Can I program a remote control? Are you kidding me? But if it was between me and watching Game of Thrones, the long night the other night, and I had to learn how to program that thing, you do it in a heartbeat, right? It's all about motivation and confidence. That's all that matters, right? Here, I get it, just get it. So to answer your question, after doing that for about 6 years, we built or upgraded 19 power plants. We started to apply modern day techniques like machine learning and AI to getting them to program efficiently. And, that was, we were rolling up all the small hydro in America, or we were trying to. But no one's worked out. But, I felt, okay, I've done this. Company's on its way. It's got its employees. It's got its funding. It's making money. Didn't need me anymore. So I really always wanted to come back to the academy. Bobby even called me, so, I didn't know. You're right, it isn't
I hope there's another question. Right on.
Thank you for sharing this wisdom with us. This was a really good time. I have one question. It was earlier when you were discussing leadership and having a vision, and I have a lot of good experiences, it sounds like, casting vision. And I'm curious about that, but I'm also curious in particular about casting vision in the face of change as a leader. How do you respond to changes that are happening in the realm that you're developing that vision in?
So, and I think all the faculty that I have the honor of serving with and here in the audience appreciate you coming here, and I think you'll appreciate about what I'm about to say. When I was a young assistant professor, associate and full, you've got your group, and you work with other faculty members, but you kind of run your own show. You make every decision you want, you just do your thing, right? And then when you want to lead, the art of communication is very important. So if you want to make change, you got to find out, okay, whose ox are you going to gore, figure out how not to do that. Communication. And so, I don't think I really appreciated all the art of communication, how we work together and bring people together at the time, But over time, you learn that. And so I find myself now, for example, if I want to do even the smallest thing, before I send an email, I will call, and then I'll send a draft, and then by the time I send the final email, like everybody's gonna get it, it's all ready, they've all bought in, and I know Susan, you run a complicated organization, Ross, you run one, Bobby, you run one, and you get that. The more you can communicate, you can never over-communicate. And so that's kind of what I had to learn a little bit by trial and error. And so I think that's probably the most important thing when you're trying to bring about change is to try and find the common ground and how that change is going to be able to positively affect people. And don't assume that everybody's going to think it's just great, right? That's the biggest surprise I ever had when I thought we were doing something that everybody would think was great. We're building our new engineering center at Duke. I just assumed everybody would think it was wonderful to build 400,000 square feet of space or whatever it was, Not everybody thought it was wonderful. And so it was really the ability to do the stakeholder outreach that is, I think, the art of leadership.
Hi, I just wanted to first thank you for taking the time to speak with us today. I really appreciate it. My name is Will Stark. I'm a senior in mechanical engineering here at CU. I'm graduating in about a week.
Congratulations, that's awesome.
It's been a while journey. I actually started CU as a film major because I'm not entirely sure what I wanted to do in high school. I discovered my passion for engineering here at CU, but I wish I had known about it a little bit earlier. I feel like my high school was not very helpful in helping me discover my true passions and capabilities, which is important to any young person's development. As an educator and engineer, how do you feel like we can better prepare and inspire young students for careers in STEM-related fields?
Yeah, that's a great question, and again, congratulations on your graduation. I think one of the things that really started, I think it was a combination too, University of Colorado Boulder, and I don't know if Jackie Sullivan's here, but we talked earlier about this, is how do you get engineering K through 12, or even the word engineering. Now, there's a lot of engineering that goes on in K through 12, but how to get people to recognize that joy in engineering, that magic, right? So I would agree that the earlier we can start, and I think some of the things that we talked about today, which is how do you get, we talked about the capstone design class, but that doesn't happen until you're junior or senior. You have to declare when you're a sophomore. So if you haven't had an opportunity to just have the curiosity about, how does an iPhone work? What's the circuits, the signal processing, the displays, and all the richness that you can dissect and get into as a first year student, and develop that curiosity, that sort of stimulus to figure it out, I think is really what's being pioneered here, probably has been for a long time. I think it goes back to the ITLL process. And that's really what we need to do more of, and just try and lower that threshold of fear.
Thank you.
I'm Shannon Walker. I don't know if you remember me, we worked together back in COVID, I think. Compact computers.
Oh my goodness. It's good to see you. Oh yes, wow.
You're my Barack Obama because you were who I wanted to be. And I was first starting my career, so I'm shaking. But I have kids now, and I'm looking at them and trying to help them pick their path. Like you said, you were trying to help your students pick their path. And I'm wondering how we help kids who should be in vocations instead of in universities know that that's an okay path for them, and how do we communicate to them that this is actually a very successful path?
Absolutely.
And how do we as leaders of education and industry, how do we convince them it's okay and it's a good choice?
Absolutely. So this is part of the 64 campuses. We have 30 community colleges that all have particular workforce development tracks, if you will, and then we have 7 colleges in technology. We started out as 2 years and now developed into both 2 and 4 years. So I think one of the ways, and it's something that I spent a lot of time at Duke working on, which is getting kids. I tried to set a goal that every student would have some sort of significant out of classroom experience, whether it was a Pratt Fellowship, which is 18 months of research in a lab, and then a summer fully paid experience to, Engineers Without Borders, which was started here, right? Engineering World Health. I mean, all the things, all the ways you get kids to appreciate that as an engineer you can do anything, or as a technologist you can do anything. And I think that getting those sorts of that touch and that experience has been bringing students through. So I think one of the movements that's really big in New York by one of our trustees, Stan Litow, is the P-Tech program, which is sort of pre-college technology. So you start teaching in the high school technical tracks that are community college courses the first year or 2. And so by the time the kids graduate from high school, they've got at least a year at community college done in a technical or workforce development track. So I think the blending of the K through 12 experience, the K through 14, is one way to do it. And I think getting those outside experiences so that kids see their future. It's really interesting about vision. We were talking earlier, Rob and myself, about how do you start a PhD student out on a graduate program. Now, all the professors here will know, the first thing you do is just say, go read every paper that ever was written beforehand on this particular topic, and then write in your first semester a summary. That's going to be your first chapter of your thesis. And you're going to find things you're curious about, and that's going to help you find your problem, right? And it's very similar in this way, too. You want to know what's come before. You want to know what the opportunities of the future is to get that vision. That's how you create that vision. And sometimes you have to really see it. So, I don't know. That's a lot. If you come up with better, this is something we're really focused
on. Middle section.
Hello. My question is that you have talked about how SUNY is developing a diversity initiative program, and you've been talking in the session about communication and using engineering problem-solving skills for policy and administration and such things like that. When you've been pitching these ideas to people or working on having them developed, have you had issues in convincing people of the need to see engineers as people who need to be trained to broadcast the enthusiasm they feel towards engineering towards into people problems. Kind of like a well-rounded engineer, the importance of diversity in a workplace that is not about necessarily what that population is made of, right? Like, how do you teach people that this matters?
Right. So one of the initiatives, and thank you for mentioning that, because we talked earlier about, so we have an initiative we just launched at SUNY, which is something that I hope all the graduate students and all your undergraduate and graduate students might be interested in. So it's called Prodigy, which is promoting the retention recruitment opportunities for inclusive growth. I mean, Prodigy is about, we think the high school and undergraduates today are Prodigy faculty of tomorrow. So we've set a goal of, let's think over the next decade, we'll need 40% of our faculty will be of retirement age. So we have 32,000 faculty, that's a lot of faculty, right? 32,000 faculty, half are full-time, half part-time. So we have about 16,000 full-time faculty. You know, a third of them could retire in the next decade. So the question is, over the next decade, can we recruit a couple thousand underrepresented minorities, women in engineering, men in nursing, library science, where they're not as represented, so that really they can be role models and of the kind of careers that anyone can have. And so that that program I think was very well embraced, although it might have had some resistance. It really hasn't, which has been nice. I think that engineers around the world are in different cultures are regarded differently, right? They're in most countries they're really considered to be well-rounded, and I think that we have sort of developed this view that we're not. Look at all of the folks that are here. I mean, all y'all. I mean, Frank, you're one of the most well-rounded people I know. I just love calling you out. It's so great to see you. Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. So, you know, everyone is. I think it's the most important thing. It seems to me is just. We just gotta stop judging each other. We gotta stop applying assumptions that may not fit an individual. We just gotta be open and let people be who they are. We're gonna be great because of our inclusiveness.
Hi, my name is Jonathan Hankin, and I'm a junior in the astrophysics program here at CU. And as of the past few years, I've kind of started developing a real passion for science policy. I think it's the career I want to pursue. And a question I find myself asking people very often and get a very broad spectrum of answers about is, what do you think is the role of nuclear energy in combating climate change, given that it's going to be such an immense problem here?
Right. So this is something I've thought a lot about, and but I will say it was about a decade ago when I thought a lot about it. So my information is a little bit dated, and it also a lot of work we did was pre-Fukushima. I think there's a huge role for nuclear. We have 103, 104 reactors in the country at about 65 different sites. It's about 18, 19, 20% of our electricity. And we have one of the best safety programs in the world here. I think we are in a race to replace coal and fossil with anything that doesn't emit carbon. And nuclear's got to be part of the solution. Now, question is, seems to me, yes, we want to be safe. I mean, obviously we've had one of the major disasters ever on the planet, Chernobyl. Fukushima wasn't great, but Fukushima were Gen 2 reactors, so they were not passively cooled, they'd be actively cooled, so when they lost power, that's when we melted down. So, I think nuclear has a role. I think here's one of the unfortunate things about nuclear, and something we did do something about it, Department of Energy. We really did not fund at the level we needed to remediate the remediation of nuclear waste. So we lost 40, 50 years of research where we might have been able to deal with the back end of the fuel cycle. Basically, what everybody knows what they do in France, and you classify it. And I've actually, been to Savannah, so the four labs that were part of my portfolio in NRL, Savannah, River, and then, those were the two mainly, Idaho, and now I'm forgetting the other one. Don't tell anybody I forgot them. So I went down and visited Savannah River, and I saw, how things could be classified. So I do think it's part of the solution. People are looking at small modular reactors, which are sort of interesting, a little expensive, but they can be done factory built instead of stick built on site. I think it's a possibility. If you look at the way we could decarbonize the electric sector and then electrify the transportation sector, those are probably the two major things we need to do pretty quickly. And then reduce our consumption. That will take a lot of the pressure off of the environment. Renewables are ahead of where we thought they'd be. Nuclear has not moved at all. Carbon capture and sequestration has not moved much. Reuse might be interesting. I think those are the areas where we have really focused on.
Yes, thank you very much. I've really enjoyed your comment here today. I'm Ron Blackwelder. I graduated from CU many years ago.
Yes, nice to see you.
I have a question involving the leadership at SUNY and your thoughts for a challenging problem, and that is funding at the universities. When I started here at CU, the state was supporting the university of the order of 30–40%. And we've all watched that at all universities just slowly go down, and if you extrapolate that another generation, it's going to be zero. Do you have any ideas? I mean, you face this in New York, I'm sure. How can you get the legislature to realize the value of education? Because we all here, I think, realize there's a strong value there, but how do you get them to put the money into where their thoughts might be?
Yes, that is a big percentage of the time I spend on my job. So budget advocacy is a big deal, and we're just finishing up the budget season. So I think stepping back, I think some of the conversation in some states, when you talk about education, they think about K through 12. So first, it's moving the conversation. So there's some numbers that are a little startling, and I think they're pretty accurate. If you look at since the Great Recession, the jobs that were generated is about 11.6 million new jobs. Maybe at that time, 11.5 went to individuals that had some sort of higher education. I think that number is correct. So that's just a fact. And if you look at the same time, the jobs that were lost during that, millions that were lost, most of those were individuals that only had a high school education. So it's really trying to advocate for the fact that if you're going to be great stewards of taxpayer dollars, you should want to make sure those dollars are going to continue, which means you want to make sure people are going to have jobs, right, and you're paying their taxes. So those are some of the things that I try to communicate. I think that's part of it. I think too, it's I think one of the positive things that you have going for you at Colorado is you just have you have a history of philanthropy. And so, at some institutions, and when I was here at CU, I'm not sure that, because the state was supporting so much, that people didn't think, well, I've already given, I've already paid my taxes, I don't have to give, right? That's just something private institutions don't really have. We're just, it's been pretty recent philanthropy as a concept from the SUNY, State University of New York. I'd say, the campuses are out there, they're really working hard, but they're at a different point on the curve. So it's complicated. I mean, I don't think there's any silver bullet. In fact, to be honest, it's kind of similar to a climate change problem. There's no silver bullet right now in climate change. It's got to be a whole bunch of different levers that we're all pulling together on. So it's got to be research, it's got to be planted, it's got to be trying to keep costs down, it's got to be endowment, it's got to be state. I know that maybe wasn't the answer, but I think it's the truth.
We've got time for just a couple more questions.
Hi, as one of the several women in electrical engineering here, thanks for coming. My question is, we've been talking a lot about climate change today, And the way I see it is that there's a disconnect between the engineers and scientists who study climate change and the people who make decisions for our country about what to do about climate change. And so you've had, all of these different roles, both the government and in research. What can we do? What can scientists and engineers do to influence the decisions about climate change and policy in America in a more effective way?
So there's a couple things. I was back right after I left the Department of Energy. So this would have been early 2011. Actually, the law school asked me to give my lecture, one of their lectures, and it occurred to me we were still having the conversation then that people didn't believe there's climate change. So one of the things is I think you find a way to find analogies so that people could relate to what you're saying. So here's one I asked people. So, how many people think there's 100% possibility in the room that humans are behind the forcing function of climate change? And a few people raise their hand. I say, well, okay, so how many? 75%, two more people raise their hand. So what about 50%? Few more people. Okay. 15% think that maybe humans have something to do with it. Everybody raised their hand. I said, oh, that's very interesting. So if we don't do anything about climate change, isn't that the same as playing Russian roulette? One bullet in the chamber, 1 out of 6. You start to bring it home, that the risk. And so really what people part of it is it's hard to define risk for people that is very visceral. But I found that actually was pretty effective. So I used to use that when I give talks, and I give a lot. I would do that. I don't have to do that anymore. I think pretty much people have realized it is. Now it's the question is how do we pivot towards it? And 10 years ago, people were thinking about ways of geoengineering. Like, I don't want to mess with Mother Nature. I don't get a choice. We don't start thinking and research going. I know people are about what are some of the techniques that we can use to kind of keep us accountable. Because I think that we know the answers, we know the solution. There's two things working against us. One is time. The other one is human adoption of those. And we may just need a little bit of time until that happens. So it's really interesting to me what's happening. Everybody thinks this is linear. You go back to 2010, you plot a path to 2050. How do we get to 83% reduction in greenhouse gas emissions by 2050? So we laid out a path, there's a linear path. Look at what's happened. You can analyze it. People are drawing back the deadlines, but which it used to be, we'll be 50% clean electricity by 2030. Or now 100% by 2040, they're gonna pull it back. People are gonna have to get after it, and we're gonna have to accomplish this because it's not linear. We're starting to get into it. So I think that we're frogs and definitely temperature boiling. I know, that sounds depressing. Okay, let's have one last question. So
I always take us with an optimistic.
All right.
I'm not sure if this is optimistic, but so this is another energy and environment question. You alluded to geoengineering, and I'm wondering if you put any credibility to any of the proposed schemes thus far, and if so, how do we as humans introduce these schemes without having half the population think, aha, I can drive my fossil fuel vehicle?
Yeah, so this is problematic. Yes, you hit on a very important question. One is I have not looked at any of the schemes. It's not that I'm not intellectually curious. I'm totally intellectually curious about them, for sure. But the reason I haven't is just this day job thing. I have time to maybe do some calculations about things that are more about mitigation. And, so I've done calculations where I replace all our electric buses and all 64 campuses, and we carbon down through costs. That's the kind of spare change cycles I get. This other would require really, really deep looking at. Two, so you raise a very interesting 2 points in your question. I thought you were going to go in a different direction. One is, so it's not like when someone emits days over like CU Boulder, it goes into the atmosphere and it goes around the world, right? Besides, they're going to do geoengineering by putting, exploding a volcano, putting ash in the atmosphere. it's gonna affect everybody. So that's why something like the Paris Accord is really important. People gotta come together and decide together to solve this problem. That's where I thought you were gonna go. Where you were going, I think, is the flip side that I heard too, is if we think we can solve this in geoengineering, which of course will also be some point, and people keep using fossil fuels. It used to be people would be concerned that it was going to run out. You know, remember we used to talk about how long is all the coal gonna last? How long is all the oil gonna last? And then we had horizontal drilling and we decided that actually we could find more. Well, you don't hear people talking about that, but back in the day, isn't it something like people were saying in 200 years we've run out of petroleum in the coal? So here's how I counted that at talks. We don't talk about this anymore either because nobody talks about this. Between my great grandfather and me, he was born in 18, more than 200 years. He had my grandmother when he was 63, and she had my dad when she was 50. So 200 years, I'm like, that's like my great grandnieces and nephews. Wow, they're still gonna be alive when that stuff runs out. I'm not too happy about that. Right? But nobody cares about that, so I don't talk about that either. But thanks for listening, because I think it's very interesting. Is that there is a connection, a very direct genetic connection for 200 years. If that's when coal and natural gas runs out, you gotta get out of this. But bad stuff's gonna happen before you ever solve it. I'm still an optimist. I still think there's a lot we can do. But people have got to start waking up and doing it now. Each of us have a role to play.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
First, just let me say thank you for making the trip out here and spending the day with us. And, seeing the college, seeing the campus. Thank you for some of the ideas that you shared with me about the growth of the college and with everyone here at the forum tonight. And I greatly appreciate your ideas about collaboration between our universities.
That would be great.
We'll be definitely following up on that. And so before we adjourn, we can continue the conversation with everyone here. It's going to be a little more social. There'll be food and drink, except for those of you on the live stream. I'm sorry, I haven't figured that one out yet. But for those of us that are here, we can continue the conversation. Please join me in thanking you.
The presidency, yeah. I want to hear